Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom.
All right, we're going to get started with prayer, get off into the praise and worship, and then jump right off into the word. Father, y'all, we thank you right now for being with us this day. Father, y'all, we thank you right now for this is a day that you have made, for we should continue to rejoice and be glad in it. Father, y'all, we come before you right now, just let you know that we magnify your name. Father, y'all, we just thank you right now. We come against all forms of sickness, Father, y'all. We come against all forms of diseases, Father, y'all. Father, y'all, we come against anything that may cause harm in our body, Father, y'all. Father, y'all, we pray that our bodies function in the proper perfection which you created them to function, Father, y'all. Father, y'all, we come against all forms of sorcery, Father, y'all, all forms of dark arts, Father, y'all. Father, y'all, we thank you that you put a willingness and a readiness inside our ruach, Father, y'all. Father, y'all, we just thank you right now that we keep our flesh under subjection, Father, y'all. Father, y'all, we thank you right now, even the more that we walk in the ruach, Father, y'all. We walk in the ruach hakodesh, Father, y'all, and we should not fulfill the lust of the flesh, Father, y'all. Father, y'all, we just come against anything, Father, y'all, that tries to cause harm to our surroundings, to our atmosphere, Father, y'all. We speak shalom in the atmosphere, Father, y'all, in which we're in, Father, y'all. Father, y'all, we take charge and we take authority over the airways, Father, y'all. We take authority over the powers, Father, y'all. Anything that tries to influence us, Father, y'all, in any way, Father, y'all, to do anything, Father, y'all, that provokes us to any form of anger, any form of adultery, Father, y'all. Father, y'all, we thank you right now we do not walk in sin, Father, y'all. Father, y'all, we thank you right now that we are set apart people, Father, y'all, Kodesh people, Father, y'all.
Yes,
Father, y'all, we thank you, Father, y'all, even the more that we aim to please you, Father, y'all. Father, y'all, we thank that we are not distracted, Father, y'all, with the cares of this world, Father, y'all. Father, y'all, we thank right now that even the more, Father, y'all, we begin to walk in the paths of righteousness, Father, y'all. Father, y'all, we just magnify your name even the more, Father, y'all. I take the personal time out for y'all, not to make this prayer so generic for y'all, but to let you know my heart for y'all. My heart for y'all, personally for y'all, my desire is to please you for y'all, to do the will of you for y'all. For y'all, thank you right now that even if a lot of people around us for y'all in certain areas, even at work, anywhere we may be for y'all, are not serving you for y'all, we should be that example for y'all. We should be that light for y'all. We should be the salt for y'all of the earth for y'all. We think that we should not lose our Savior for y'all. We think it right now they should see the flavor of you upon our life for y'all. For y'all, we think right now they should see us for y'all excelling in the things of you for y'all. For y'all, we think right now we heal for y'all, those for y'all that are sick for y'all, those that are sick mentally for y'all, there's a lot of people that are wrestling for y'all in their mind for y'all that can't cast down these imaginations for y'all. A lot of people being tormented for y'all. We come against torment for y'all. We come against that ruach that causes people to be tormented for y'all. We come against that ruach for y'all that causes people to think suicidal thoughts for y'all. For y'all, we just thank you right now in the name of your son, Yahushua Mashiach, for leading and guiding us into all truth for y'all, into all righteousness for y'all. For y'all, in the name of your son, Yahushua Mashiach, we pray. So be it.
So be it.
Shabbat shalom again, everybody.
Shabbat shalom.
All right, we're going to be talking about not bowing down to the image. And we're going to kind of be coming from Daniel in a sense, but we're going to kind of explain how we got to this point. So we're going to start off talking about what went on when all this came to pass. What happened was a lot of them were actually complaining about the tax that Solomon and his son Rehoboam was putting on the people. So a big division came about in First Kings, which started the northern and the southern kingdom, which started the split. So what happened when we deal with this, we see Rehoboam actually go before the people because they were getting ready, they had this big revolt against the taxes and everything. And so instead of Rehoboam listening to the wise men that was around Solomon, he didn't want to hear them. And the wise men that told him in chapter 12 of First Kings that if you do the people right, just to paraphrase it, they'll serve you forever. But Rehoboam called for the counsel of the ones that grew up with him. He called for the counsel of the younger men and forsook the counsel of the elders. In the process of this right here, we get to Rehoboam actually listening to the younger men. After a few days, he came back and he told them what the younger men said. And the younger men told him to make it hard. Told him to make it very hard, to say that, you think your father's hard. He compared his father's pinky finger with his father's little finger to his waist. They were saying, it's going to be even worse. And so it got to a point where the people was not trying to hear that. So a big hassle came about, and it was to the point where they was not even hearing anything. So they began to, Rehoboam began to send his captain back. So we're going to go to, I'm going to look at 1 Kings 12 and 18. Basically begins to talk about Adoram, which was over the tribute and which over the taxes of the city. When the king sent him, they stoned him to death. They didn't want to hear it. It was over. They said, look, we're not going for that. Solomon dead, and you're no longer going to big boys. You're no longer going to force your labor upon us. We're not going to do it anymore. It got to the point where if you look at the rest of the scriptures, say they made Rehoboam catch fire. They made him catch flight. They made him get out of there. They ran him off because when he saw they killed his servant, he took off and ran to the chariot and left. And at that point, it began to be a big division of northern and southern. So Jeroboam, which is Solomon's servant, took over. And so we have this situation where there's a division. So the house of Judah was the only one that followed the house of David at that point. So we're going to look at, just to give an example to those that may not understand the split, it's hard to get right into the bowing down without giving the history of what happened. This led into the kings becoming evil because this started with the forsaking of knowledge, the forsaking of counsel from wise men. He rather get counsel from those that, that knew him. So, it's easy to hear somebody that's around you every day and they'll tell you something that you want to hear because they don't want to offend you or they want to make you feel good. But when you start looking at what goes on with those that are not really around you, but that has more wisdom, that didn't really grow up in your era, you want to call them old, outdated, and all this kind of stuff, but it winds up leading you in trouble. Just like people look at people that's like in the younger generation, they do things that people in my generation wouldn't even do. They'd be like, no, we don't even operate like that. What they, just certain stuff they're doing, just to paraphrase it, just to give example, the way they wear their clothes and the way the way they talk, the way they conduct themselves. They're not even conducting themselves as young men, they conduct themselves as heathens. And so this is what was going on. He wanted to get those that were cool, those that were popular, to actually talk to him versus those that were going to tell him what he needed to hear. So when you look at after the death of Solomon, when the split came, you have Israel, which is the northern kingdom, which is Asher, Dan, Ephraim, Manasseh, Gad, Issachar, Naphtali, Reuben, Simeon, and Zebulun, or Zebulun, whichever way you want to pronounce it. And Yehuda is the southern kingdom, which was just Yehuda and Benjamin. And so this is what we have going on. So during this process here, the split came. This split caused them to be carried away into Babylon because there was a king that came up that was evil. This king is Manasseh, not through the tribe of Manasseh, but Manasseh, which is the son of Hezekiah, which was the king. And so we're looking at this here. We're going to turn to 2 Kings chapter 21. We're going to read about Manasseh. And in the process of reading about Manasseh, this is what we have to pay attention to, because if you look at Manasseh, Manasseh is the one that Jeremiah was prophesying about when the Most High gave him the prophecy that you were going to serve Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar was the Most High's servant. Even though he was of Babel and he was Chaldean and all that, he was a servant of the Most High based upon him being utilized by the Most High, because the Most High used him to punish us. And so that's what we'll look at, 2 Kings 21, which is talking about how evil Manasseh was. We're going to give you an example of why the children of Yasharal, why we wound up being in bondage, why we got carried away into Babylon, into captivity. The Most High, he doesn't deal with a lot of this evil. He just couldn't. One scripture say he would not forgive the sin of Manasseh. It was so bad that they had to be carried into captivity. And so we'll look at that scripture there, 2 Kings 21, 1 through 12.
2 Kings chapter 21, verse 1. And Manasseh was 12 years old when he began to reign, and reigned 55 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Chepzibah. And he did that which was evil in the sight of Yahuwah, after the abominations of the heathen, whom Yahuwah cast out before the children of Yashrael. For he built up again the high places which Yahoo, his father, had destroyed. And he reared up altars for Baal and made an Asherah pole, as did Achab, king of Yashrael, and worshipped all the host of heaven and served them.
Pause. And we're trying to go through this here just so you can get understanding that this is what led us into captivity, because he, the Most High didn't deal with serving, another mighty one. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't deal with serving other Elohim. It's like either you're going to serve him or not. So he went there and set up a whole nother system that wasn't even part of us. He went setting up the high places again. Like the Most High wasn't with that. This is one good way to get turned away from the Most High, is to start serving idols, start serving the world and things that are not of the Most High. Like we look at, just because we say they put the high places up, it was physical then, the high places now that are around us are just everything we're doing that's not of the Most High. We just take the counsel of the world. When the world begins to give counsel, we don't supposed to just grab it because everybody else is doing it. Because we got to remember right now where we're at, we're in captivity also, and it's because of the sins of our ancestors. So we can't think every time we see something on TV or every medicine that comes out that it's good for us. We just have to look at the Most High. You know, he'll turn his back against you based upon you knowing to do what's right, but you choose to do what everybody else is doing. It's not going to matter that everybody's doing it because everybody's going to be punished. So let's look at the second one. You keep going.
4. And he built altars in the house of Yahuwah, of which Yahuwah said, in Jerusalem will I put my name. And he built altars for all the hosts of heaven in the 2 courts of the house of Yahuwah. And he made his son pass through the fire and practiced sorcery and used enchantments and dealt with familiar spirits and wizards. He wrought much wickedness in the sight of Yahuwah to provoke him to anger.
Okay, now you see this is like when we look at these scriptures, we think about the old days, but everything that they're doing back then is happening now. It's like a lot of things that happen. People are making sacrifices. They're making their children not so much pass through the physical fire, but they're passing through the fire based upon the sacrifice they're making in the world by forsaking them, by just throwing them out to the wolves. It's like we'll be held accountable the way that we raise up our children, because it said if you train them up the right way, they will not depart. But in this case here, say made them pass through the fire. And we know we talk about Molech and everything like that. Like, you know, that was an actual image and that was the actual, whatever, it was gold, bronze, or whatever, but it was set up like a cow or something like that. And they had the fire there and they would actually sacrifice. I mean, pass through the fire was being burnt up, basically. It was no, you know, it wasn't symbolic.
7. And he set a graven image of the Asherah pole that he had made in the house of which Yahuwah said to El David and to El Solomon, his son. And this house and in Jerusalem, which I have chosen out of all the tribes of Yashrael, will I put my name forever. Neither will I make the feet of Yashrael move any more out of the land, which I gave their fathers, only if they will guard to do according to all that I have commanded them, and according to all the Torah that my servant Moshe commanded them. But they hearkened not, and Manasseh seduced them to do more evil than did the nations whom Yahuwah destroyed before the children of Yashrael.
Now it says he seduced them to do more evil than the other nations. I'm driving this home to let you know, how do we wind up in Babylon? Why did King Nebuchadnezzar come and get those that were wise and skilled and get those that he wanted to, you know, take their, you know, change their name and everything so they can serve him and everything? This all started right here. This is the background. It started when you deal with the actual, we had the division first, the northern and the southern kingdom. Then after you get right there, which, you know, which they tried to kill King Solomon's son, but he got away. So King Solomon's servant took over. And we get to this point. This is the point that makes the prophecy come to Jeremiah to say that we'll be carried away into Babylon. This is how we lead up to Daniel.
And Yahuwah spoke by his servants, the prophet, saying, because Manasseh, king of Yehudah, has done these abominations and has done wickedly above all that the Amorites did, which were before him, and was made Yehudah, and has made Yehudah also to sin with his idols. Therefore, thus says Yahuwah Elohim of Yashrael, behold, I am bringing such evil upon Jerusalem in Yehudah, that whosoever hears of it, both his ears shall tingle.
And say their ears gonna tingle. It's gonna be harsh. And Most High gonna say, look, it's gonna be something. And this is something I look at the scripture. I like, you try to get away from what you hear the world saying when people say no one can make you do anything. But no one can physically make you do it, but it's called the power of persuasion. This is why I said made him do it. So we have to get away from phrases, look at what this says, because you can cause someone to stumble. And it's the same thing. It's like you're not making them, like forcing them. So we got to get these worldly phrases out here saying nobody can't make. People can, you know, encourage you to do something. That's like, and when you look at make, it's not saying they took you and put you there and everything like that and physically work your limbs. It's saying that you were persuaded to do evil. And this is what happened right here. He caused them to do evil, to turn away from the Most High. And because of this, here comes the punishment. Here comes Jeremiah, the prophet that's going to come to Jeremiah, because they're thinking, okay, look, there's no way. You got to look at Yashrael, you got to look at everything that went on, how mighty and everything we was. There's no way no one would receive the fact that we're going to be carried away into Babylon at this point. Nobody's trying to hear this. They just had a fight, northern against southern. There's no one that's outside that's involved in this. But this prophecy going to come forth to not only the Yashrael serve Nebuchadnezzar, the other kingdoms and the other nations around are going to serve him also. If you look at the research of King Nebuchadnezzar, it wasn't about just Yashrael. That was just one more he had to the list. The Most High saw him already. It's like the Most High raised him up to be a conqueror. And since he was a conqueror, he was one of the ones that went forth where he didn't even take no resistance. It's like everything that he went forth against, it was all overtaken by his kingdom. And the Most High actually put Israel on the list. That's what happened. So Yasharel got added to the list of what was already going on. And so it had to happen. It was to the point where the prophecy began to say that if you don't serve Nebuchadnezzar, I'm going to take you out. Like it was just, this is because this even. So we'll say like, we look at everything as like no big deal. We brush it off as nothing. If you look at all this stuff that I just read, it's the same stuff that happens in the world today. The Most High doesn't want to like go for this stuff that you're saying, okay, look, I saw something on TV and everybody else is doing it on this social media website, so I'm gonna go forth and do it too. You have to be set apart. That you can't mix up the thing that the Most High told you to do, or the way he told you to carry yourself with the way the world is carrying itself. It's not going to mix. It's going to be a problem. It's going to be like oil and water. They're going to think, hey, you crazy, you outdated. Well, that's the same thing happened with the knowledge of the wise men versus the young men. The young men thought that the old men's knowledge was outdated, and it wound up causing them to go into captivity. Because the old men said, if you serve the people right, they'll serve you forever. But then the young men came back and said, no, it's going to be worse than King Solomon. We're going to crush him. And they weren't going for it. They revolted against him and said, you're not going to crush us. They killed that servant when he came back and put him on the run like that. So it's like, and King Solomon's son would have been dead if he hadn't took off. And so we can't look at things being outdated. Like the word doesn't change because the world changes. Like we have to evolve with times. We have to know we're no longer in a horse and chariot. Understand we drive cars now. We don't have to take that car and go do something evil with it. Like we can use it to do the right thing like that. So we have to look at what's going on in this day time versus what was happening then. It's the exact same thing. The only thing that's happening is we have more technology and it's easier to get in trouble now. That's all it is. So it's like it's nothing new. Like we're not supposed to follow the ways of the world. And we'll see this. When you follow the ways of the world, they begin to change your identity. We don't need our identity change. We don't need our characteristics change or the nature of who we are change. And this is what happens. And if you look at this right here, even if you're not following the ways of the world, when someone that's inside of Yasharel turns wicked and turns evil, they turn Yasharel wicked and evil also. So this King Manasseh, he wasn't of King Nebuchadnezzar and them. He was right there in the middle of everything else. He was a king, but he was an evil king. Just like King Ahab, he was the wickedest king that I can see recorded with the stuff that he done. But there were evil kings that rose up, and then there were kings that were not evil. If you look throughout the scripture, it's like back and forth, there was a resistance. This tax that was being put forth was a tax against our own brother. This wasn't some tax from the outside. This was King Solomon's son trying to make taxes harder than what he had made it. And so it's like we have to look at it like we try to enslave one another to the point where now we start fighting one another. It's like there was always this struggle for power. Same thing happens now. Like most of the time we can't get along. And I say this a lot of times because everybody wants to be in charge. I'm talking about Yasharel. Everybody wants to be in charge. It's like no one wants to sit back. It's like everybody wants to be in charge. And when they get in charge, they want to enforce all these worldly ways and everything on everybody. They don't want to operate as being set apart. They want to be in charge and be uplifted at the same time. They don't want to be common. And it's like, you're not going to be in charge of the most highest people and then at the same time embrace the world and try to force what the world's doing on them. Like if you look at Manasseh, everything he did was against the works of what the Most High said. It was like, nah, look, I'm not doing anything that the Most High was doing. I'm going to be more wicked than anybody that was out there. I'm not going to allow anybody to serve him in my sight. It's like he wanted everybody to turn against the Most High. It's like he did everything contrary to the ways of the Most High. And this is why the Most High, this is what the Most High could not forgive. He couldn't forgive it, so he had to bring forth judgment. The judgment was gone. It's like Daniel came as a young man and he served Nebuchadnezzar all the way until he was an old man. He never left. Like Daniel was there forever. So it's like we don't, there's no getting away. Like just like we're here, our ancestors brought us here, and we're not gone. We're not from here, but we've been here so long till everybody has adapted to the culture and allowed them to allow us to think the way they want us to think. If you think about this, we'll look at some more of it later, but we're going to keep moving forward from trying to get to what happened and why did Daniel and who they would call Belteshazzar or whatever, something about Baal, changing his name from the Most High to that, end up into Babylon. He ended up into Babylon because the king sought out those that were wise. Remember, Daniel was wise. So we'll go to Jeremiah 27, starting at the first verse. And this is the prophecy that the Most High give Jeremiah to give not just to Yashrael, but to the nations in the other kingdoms. So Jeremiah 27. All right.
Jeremiah 27. In the beginning of the reign of, let's see, read differently in my Bible. Joachim, the son of Josiah, king of Yehuda, came this word into Jeremiah from Yahuwah, saying, thus says Yahuwah to me, make you bonds and yokes and put them upon your neck, and send them to the king of Edom, and to the king of Moab, and to the king of Ammonim, and to the king of Zor, and to the king of Zidon, by the hand of the messengers which came to Jerusalem, and to Siddiq Yahu, king of Yehuda.
Okay, so all these kings, as you look at it, you see the king of Yehuda last. This isn't just about Yashrael. This is every kingdom around has that if Nebuchadnezzar can get to them, they're conquered, because he's being empowered by the Most High. He had to show his might, just like he showed his might through Yashrael, and they had heard about them, but they heard about Nebuchadnezzar. And people think he like some simple something. No, he was a servant of the Most High. We're not going to get to that, but later on down the line, he was so much of a servant to the Most High, to eventually the Most High had to humble his behind and make him have this complex that made him think he was like an animal and went around forest and everything, eating, grazing the field, just like an animal do. He made Nebuchadnezzar lost his mind because he had got too proud. He had got to the point where he had got beside himself, and the Most High had to show him, look, I put you where you're at. I raise you up so that you can be a force for me, a force to be reckoned with. This is why we have to look at, we never think that you're the last one. I always say this, like Yashrael was a great kingdom, but the Most High had to say, look, you was a great kingdom because I was behind you. Now Nebuchadnezzar is going to be a great king because I'm behind him. And so he used Nebuchadnezzar to pretty much chastise them.
And command them to say unto their masters, thus says Yahuwah Sabaoth, the Elohe of Yashrael, thus shall ye say unto your masters, I have made earth, the man and the beast that are upon the ground by my great power and by my outstretched arm, and have given it unto whom it seemed meet unto me. And now have I given these lands into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babel, my servant.
Pause. And this is in the middle, but he said, my servant. This is the thing. He said, whom it seemed meet unto me. Like, I know you're Yashrael, I know you belong to me, but Nebuchadnezzar is my servant. I have time invested in Nebuchadnezzar, and I have allowed him to get to the point that he is at. This is why you have to look at it and understand that when you're actually in the midst of something, it doesn't mean that you change. Like when you look at what's going on, when you look at Psalm 23, it says to prepare a table before you in the presence of your enemies. It don't mean you start operating and acting like your enemy. So this is the thing. Even though Nebuchadnezzar is not serving the Most High, he's a servant of the Most High. He's the one that's going to do this. Like we try to put everybody in a box. Well, they ain't doing this, they ain't doing that. The Most High can use anybody he wanted to use to chastise you. Whatever he say goes. There's no rules, but we're the ones that have to follow the law, statutes, and commandments. You got to forget about, you can't enforce this on somebody else that's already got, they're serving a whole nother Elohim. They have a whole different culture. It's us that the commandment came to, not nobody else. That's why when they join, it says it should be one law for all. To those that are homeborn, those that are whatever it may be, like slave, whatever it is. If you have anybody that's in your house, they all follow that same law. Those that connect themselves to Yashrael, they follow that one law. So it doesn't mean anything when they're not connected. They follow whatever they've been following. That's what they do. So when the Most High picks somebody from out of that place, he called them his servant. It has nothing to do with them being the people of Yah. It's that he's serving a purpose that Yah needs to be served, and that's to chastise it. He had to get somebody big because we were beside ourselves. We were with him. They heard, everybody that heard about the Red Sea being part of all this stuff got, they knew about that. So he said, look, I got to raise somebody greater so I can show y'all that you're not the only one that I can express my power through. You will be humble. And I'm going to use Nebuchadnezzar to do that. And those that will listen to this didn't want to hear that. During this time, they're fighting against Jeremiah. They're not trying to hear none of it. They're saying, look, there's no way we're going to serve no Babel, no king of Babel, or anything like that. He's not even from around there. He has to come in and get them and carry them away into captivity, into Babylon. So there's no way you can see this outside of prophecy. So you have to either take the word from Jeremiah or you just have to believe what you've been seeing. This is why we have to look at it. Don't think things will always be the same. Like where we at right now, don't think that it's always going to be this way. Things will change. It will get to a point where you would have to be like he told Peter. He said, I pray for you that your faith fail you not. Like, you're going to have faith. It's going to get to a point where there's no way around. You won't be able to just wing it. You're going to have a relationship with the Most High to know what to do, because if you look at this, it's like the page turned and they were in Babylon at some point. There's no way they would have thought this was going to happen. But this happened because of the fact of pride. Everybody forgot about the former days. They forgot about the way they were supposed to carry themselves and got caught up into serving idols. It's the same thing now. Like, everything you see going on around you, I just keep going back and forth to the propaganda, the internet, everything that's happening to show you all this stuff, easy, quick ways and all this. There's no quick, easy way. It's one way. It's consistent. That's it. You just have to be consistent and be set apart. Everything else that happened in the process of that, you have to ignore anything that comes against, whatever the Most High told you to do. You can't embrace everything the world brings out. You can't embrace their medication. You can't embrace their food. You have to make sure that you're constantly being set apart. If you're not, what happens is it just sneaks up upon you and you're wondering what happened. It's going to come. It's not really coming all of a sudden. Like, the case is being built. It's just like in court. Like, the case gets built against somebody before they actually come to get them. And next thing you know, you say, okay, look, man, I see I'm being indicted. But they got you 5-10 years like that. So they don't just come at you for what you did yesterday. When they come, they finna lock it down. It's finna be over. It's finna say, look, you're gonna sell out, or you're gonna do all this time. It's the same thing now. It's like, this been happening for years. It's like, if you keep up with the time, you go back from just the 60s and to where we're at now, you can see how things have changed. Certain TV shows, they wouldn't even show that they showed now. They wouldn't show them back then. Certain ways that people carry themselves, it wouldn't happen. It would be something that'll be done about the way people are operating. But now everything is popular and people are embracing all forms of evil. Like, evil has increased. And it's like we embrace it because of the fact that they make jokes out of it. And like, they show it in joke form, they show it in form that makes you think, okay, look, it's like the power of suggestion. Since you see it happening on a commercial, you think it's okay. Well, it's not okay. Like, the Most High created man for woman, not man for man, not woman for woman. He created you to be the way he wants you to be. So when you see the TV showing you that it's okay and cool to do, you say, okay, well, ain't no big deal. TV showing it all the time. And so you get caught up. So you have to learn the ways of the Most High. If you don't learn the ways of the Most High, you'll be confused, because you cannot look at what's been going on. You have to do your research and say, which way do we carry ourselves and where do we start getting off track? We got off track in Babylon. That's what we got off track, because this is what introduced foreign things to us. This introduced a foreign language, foreign food, everything, that we wasn't doing back then. It's happening now, and nobody's really worried about it because it's not a big deal. It's not being shunned. It's like we're living in a comfort zone. And those that are even saying they're of the Most High are going right along with it and misleading a lot of people, because they see them doing it, because they're saying the name of this, we don't even call them false name that they're using. So wherever you left off there, you can go.
In the beasts of the field have I given him also to serve him.
So he even gave him the beasts of the field. Nebuchadnezzar has total control.
And all nations shall serve him in his son's son, until the very time of his land come, and then many nations and great kings shall serve themselves of him. And it shall come to pass that the nation and kingdom which will not serve the same Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babel, and that will not put their neck under the yoke of the king of Babel, that nation will I punish, says Yahuwah, with the sword and with famine and with the pestilence, until I have consumed them by his hand. Okay, and this is the thing. Remember, this is a prophecy. This isn't like, coming out of nowhere. This is what he's telling Jeremiah to go tell everybody. This isn't like you're going to get an opportunity, but the thing is, the pride of them are not trying to hear it. And so they're going to be taken away by storm. But he's letting them know what the Most High is saying. You have no other option. You have to serve Nebuchadnezzar based on what has happened. And there's a scripture we're going to go to, but at some point it tells them why. It's because of the sin of Manasseh. It says because of that, he could not forgive it. He said, look, you have to go into captivity, and there's no way out of it. If you try to go out of it and don't serve him, I'm going to crush you. This is the Most High saying this. So we can't go into worrying about who was following law, statutes, and commandments when the Most High is using them. It's what he told you to do. In the midst of anybody that the Most High is using that's not following the law, statute, and commandment, you still have to follow it, and he's still going to use them. Like, you can't put the Most High in no box. It's like we can't allow whatever we hear on the street corner, whatever we see on YouTube, whatever. We can't allow anybody that's trying to be on a one-track mind type idea with the Most High to get us off course and realize that if you're somewhere and you did something wrong, the Most High used somebody to chastise you.
And you're wondering why did this happen? It don't have nothing to do with them following his commandments, anything like that. It's the fact that he has to use somebody to do it because we're not even set up to do anything. We're so mixed up now. It's like our people are not in position to be kings and everything like that. We're not even in the, back at home no more. So it's too much confusion going on. So he has to use outsiders to put you in check, to keep you in line, or you get beside yourself. And so this shows you that if you don't do it, then the Most High is going to, cause famine, pestilence. Everything is going to be happening against you. And it's like you're going to be fighting against the Most High because you're resisting to be in bondage. Like he's calling for bondage right now. But at the same time, there'll be peace if you submit.
9. Therefore, hearken not to your prophets, nor to your diviners, nor to your dreamers, nor to your enchanters, nor to your sorcerers, which speak unto you, saying, ye shall not serve the king of Babel. For they prophesy a lie unto you, to remove you far from your land, and that I should drive you out, and ye should perish. But the nations that bring their neck under the yoke of the king of Babel and serve him, those will I let remain still in their own land, says Yahuwah, and they shall till it and dwell therein. I spoke also to Zedekiah, king of Yehuda, according to all these words, saying, bring your necks under the yoke of the king of Babel and serve him and his people and live.
Okay, we stopped there, but we know through that story, they began to rebel. So they had to bring Nebuchadnezzar in, bring the army in of him to go and put them in bondage because they weren't trying to hear it. We paraphrase it because this is leading up to Daniel. So in the midst of getting to Daniel, they didn't listen to that we just read about concerning Jeremiah. They didn't listen to the prophet. They said, nah, we ain't trying to hear that. Now, we're not trying to do this. So they rebelled. The king rebelled against, and then the Most High had to come in. If you read the story, he had to bring Nebuchadnezzar's soldiers in to enforce what he said, because he meant it. And so this is why we get to Daniel. At this point, it's all bets are off. Y'all didn't listen. So now we want all y'all wise men from out of here. We want all your eunuchs and everything like that. Those are the ones that have been castrated, testicles, I would say, are removed. So based on the service that they had to serve at the gates most of the time of women like that. So in this case here, we see all this is going on, and all the wise men, Daniel is wise. Daniel can interpret dreams, and he can tell you the dream. All this stuff can go on. They've changed the name. We're going to go over their names where they say Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. We're going to go over their names. All their names meant something concerning Yah, just like all our people names meant something concerning Yah before we came, before we were carried away into where we are now, which we call Babylon. And so we'll look at, before we get into this here, we look at Daniel. So let's look at, you can start off on that first verse of Daniel chapter, let's do Daniel chapter 1. Yeah. At this point, the reign of King Nebuchadnezzar is starting to happen because of the disobedience. So we'll do Daniel chapter 1, starting at the first verse.
Right. Daniel chapter 1, verse 1. In the 3rd year of the reign of Yahukim, king of Yehuda, came Nebuchadnezzar of Babel into Jerusalem and besieged it. And Adonai gave Yahukim, king of Yehuda, into his hand, and were part of the vessels of the house of Elohim, which he carried into the land of Shinar to the house of his Elohim. And he brought the vessels into the treasure house of his Elohim. Mm-hmm. And the king spoke unto Ashpenaz, the master of his eunuchs, that he should bring certain of the children of Yashraal, and of the king's seed, and of the princes, children in whom was no blemish, but well favored and skillful in all wisdom and cunning and knowledge, and in understanding, science, and such had ability in them to stand in the king's palace, in whom they might teach the learning in the tongue of the Chaldean.
Okay, now, so basically wanted to teach them the tongue of the Chaldean. This is what's going on. The king wanted to sort out those that those that were actually wise. This is why you're dealing with Daniel. You see what he got going on. But in order to do that, he wanted to actually get them converted into, his way of being, to his way, the way he do things. And so we're not going to read that yet, but we'll just kind of paraphrase a little bit that the king wanted them to eat his meat. He wanted them to eat his meat so they can actually eat his meat, drink his wine, so that they can actually appear before him as wise counsel. This is why he sought out those that were wise. But this is what we want to get at. When you get the way I know that we were carried away into Babylon, those that try to say like we were just here and all this and slavery didn't happen. Well, we look at everything that goes on, it's all the same. It's almost just like when you look at, we're not going to really get into that because we know this is a movie, but when you look at Toby versus Kunta Kinte, when you look at the slave constantly whooped him, what is your name? What is your name? We kept on saying what his name was. He kept saying, you know, what his name was Kunta Kinte, and he kept saying, boy, your name is Toby. Kept on whooping, kept on whooping. He didn't want to be Toby because he knew he was, but this is what they want to do. They want to take away your identity, and they want to do it through whooping it out of you in a physical form. And so at this point, it's like, you know, it's the same scenario. It's the same scenario. It's like they don't want you to have any name, even though that's not a name that I would use. I'm just using that as an example because the name that we had was a name that had something to do with Yah. But the thing is, they want to take away your identity and give you their identity. Like we took on the identity of the slave master. This is the identity we took on. All those names that we have, which are the last name, were names from a plantation. I won't say all of them, but the majority of them. Those that come from down south that had a last name, most of the time it represented the master's his actual wealth and everything, his name, his farm, or wherever you was working at, plantation. That's what it was about. So when you look at these names, Daniel, it says, we just looking at an American term, basically says Yah is my judge. But the name they changed to Belteshazzar, it said Bel protect. And these are just paraphrasing, say Bel protect the king. And you'll see different versions, but it didn't mean Yah is my judge, is what I'm trying to get at, if you see a different version of it. And when you look at Meshach, you know, which is you know, it says as Aku is, which is a moon Elohim. And so you don't want to actually you know, and Meshach with Michelle basically would say as Yah is with his name. They changed it to Meshach, which as Aku is, moon Elohim. And when you look at all these weird names here, Azariah, which is Yah has helped, was changed to Abednego, which is servant of Nebo, which is actually Elohim of science and literature. So or you could say it comes from light. He wanted those that were enlightened, those that were able to deal with like science and start here where we're at. Like a lot of things navigating and all that stuff going on. Because remember, Issachar was of times and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of things that you see going on back then what's going on now is like they just took it and put it into a greater form. Like you had the wise men which used the actual star to find Yahushua HaMashiach. So it's like a lot of things was going on back then. Like we don't get into the worship of these things, but at the same time, the Most High had a way he used things that did not turn into witchcraft and sorcery. So they sought them out. I just wanted to show you that the first thing they did was want to change their name. After they wanted to change their name, we'll see they want to change their diet. I'm not going to look at that. It can be paraphrased because the king's servant, King Nebuchadnezzar's servant, came and told him, look, I want you guys to eat this meat and drink this wine of the king so we can let you appear before the king. Daniel said, no, look, give us 10 days. Just give us, in paraphrasing, just vegetables and water. Just give us vegetables and water for 10 days and then look at our conscience and look at the conscience of those that you already given that to. And when you look at the end of that, it said that Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego was 10 times better. The king found them to be 10 times better than his servants. 10 times. So this shows that they didn't have to do that. And whatever he's saying, I would not defile myself with the king's meat. It could have been sacrificed to idols. It could have been blood. Anything could have been going on. But Daniel didn't want it. But this is what we did when we came here. They put us in slavery and we started eating fat back, pork and all that stuff. We wasn't eating that stuff. Like they changed our diet also, start giving us scraps and stuff. But in this case, they was trying to do it for the better. But what they thought was for the better was for worse for us. Because Daniel said, look, I can't eat this stuff. That's not telling what that was they were eating. Just because it says the king's meat, it doesn't mean it was according to the dietary law. Daniel said, look, all this is bad. Only thing I can see is kind of like when you look at the fast food places around you and they make it all look pretty and nice, but the only thing you can get out of there is the vegetables. And sometimes that ain't good. But in this case, Daniel said, look, I'll at least get the vegetables. I'm not going to eat any of your meat. I'm not going to drink any of your wine because I don't want no part of it. And so Daniel came out to fare better. And we're not going to get into the second chapter, Daniel, just to paraphrase it, because I'm trying to get to a point to show you the power and how the Most High used Daniel in the second chapter of Daniel. It was the king's dream, where the king wanted someone to bring the dream and the interpretation thereof the dream. If you didn't, he was going to cut you into pieces, he said. And so Daniel was wanting to know, why is this punishment so harsh? He called forth for the king's soldiers, say, look, why is the king wanting to kill everybody? And the king said, look, if you can't tell me both, all y'all are dying. He was just mad about it, you know what I mean? And, you know, it kind of goes back to Pharaoh, you know what I mean? Like that in Joseph. I mean, so all this stuff goes on. But when it gets to the point, Daniel began to let him know both the dream and the interpretation thereof. He would let them know that there is a Yah that sits high and look low that has the power to reveal secrets unto people. And he said, he'll reveal the secret unto me. And Daniel came back and let him know. And Daniel said, look, don't kill all of them. Don't kill anybody. Just give me a minute. And Daniel kind of saved all of them, because it was not just Daniel. It was Daniel and everybody else that was wise that stood before the king. The king wanted to kill them all. And so we go from there. We know that the dream showed clay and iron mixed together. We're not really dealing with that right now, but he let them know everything about the kingdom that was actually going to be divided and everything, and why the dream came forth, because the dream troubled the king. And I think the king kind of forgot it. Like that, he said it began to trouble his ruach. And at that time, he said, look, I need somebody to bring this back to my remembrance and also tell me what it is. I mean, so Daniel done that, and it showed that Daniel had favor in the sight of the king. But the king is full of pride. We're still dealing with Nebuchadnezzar. We ain't dealing with Darius yet. We're still dealing with him. And as you get to 3, this is when King Nebuchadnezzar wants to get beside himself. He wants to make adultery. He wants to make an image, a golden image that everyone is supposed to bow to when the music starts playing or when the band starts playing. He said, look, when you hear all this music and all the instruments that play, bow to the image. And this is where we go at, where this is why he got beside himself. And this is the beginning of his fall. Like the Most High is not going to go this forward. He's not going to let him do this and keep rolling and get carried away with it. So at some point, he's going to have to be stopped. Even though he's the Most High servant, he got to remember, look, I put you where you at and I can bring you back down. So it's like, we'll start off looking at Daniel chapter 3, verse 1, where it talks about the image of gold.
Nebuchadnezzar the king made an image of gold whose height was 80 cubits and the breadth thereof 6 cubits. He set it up in the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king sent to gather together the princes, the governors, and the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces to come into the dedication of the image which Nebuchadnezzar the king set up.
Pause it. Now, I want to read this first part just to show you that, look, everybody's being called. This is one of these things where I was saying, just as everybody's doing it doesn't mean it's right. Like everybody's about to do this. Like everybody that's under the influence of the king. Like we have to look at this. He's in Babylon. We're in Babylon. And just you see everybody here doing it, we don't forget where you come from. We're not from here. And it's like people want to say, oh, we've been here. Nothing, you should never forget where you come from. Once you forget where you come from, you start easily going along with everything that's going on here. We're in a foreign land. It doesn't have what the Most High wants for us, for us. They don't care. They say, look, this is what we have for you, and this is what we want you to do. When we create an issue, we also create the solution too. When we create a problem, we create the solution. I'm avoiding certain words to say. So they say, look, we're going to bring out whatever we want to do, and look, we're going to give you the jab. Like you take that and it's going to fix it. So it's like, you can't think that this world is going to operate fair. It's designed to dangle shiny objects in front of you, and you go grab it. You reach for it. So I like that. I'm going to go get it. But the Most High said, don't do that. But you're saying, okay, ain't nothing wrong with that. That ain't in the Bible, but everything is not going to be written and stripped. You have to look that you don't want to let your good be evil spoken of. So at this particular case right here, we see everything that's going on, and everybody's going along with it. So the pressure is on. At this point, it's like they're going to look like outcasts because they already, a while back, didn't eat the food. And it's like they're saying, look, we're not going to do that. Now, we're not trying to do this either. So they don't want to bow to the image, but everybody else is bound to the image. The image don't have to be a physical golden image. It's stuff that the Most High don't want you to do, that the world is saying that's okay to do. Like if he said, don't do it, you still have to be set apart. Even one guy that I know, I don't want to call him out here, but say, are you set apart from the set apart of Akano? That was the message he preaches. Like, just because you're amongst your people doesn't mean that they're living a set apart life before the Most High. They're living in pride, just like we were living in pride back then, thinking just because we're Yasha'al that we got a free pass. Like grace doesn't give you a free pass to sin. You know what I'm saying? Grace excuses sin that you've done and that you were trying not to do. It's like you don't just use it to say, look, I got the grace of Yah, so I'm just going to keep doing what I want to do and he'll forgive me. It's not for premeditated sin. It's like, so we have to look at this and say, okay, look, I see what they're doing, but don't worry about it. Ignore it. It don't matter that it's all over the TV. They're going to bless themselves everywhere. And they say, look, that's what propaganda is for, the power of suggestion. Everybody's going to see it. They're going to show you what you need to do to get rid of it. But that's not what you need to do. This is why we have to get back to our roots, get back to the holistic way so we can actually get ourselves situated where we're not influenced to do things that this nation wants us to do. to get us caught up to a point where the Most High looks at us now as operating in things that are abominable to him. And that's what they're designed to do. You can go to 3, I think. No, you didn't read. You just stopped at 2. I stopped.
Okay. The princes, the governor, the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces were gathered together into the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. And they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then a herald cried aloud, "To you it is commanded, O people, nations, and languages, that at what time you hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye fall down and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king has set up. And whoso falls not down and worships shall the same hour be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace." Therefore, at that time, when all the people heard the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and all kinds of music, all the people, the nations, and the languages fell down and worshiped the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up.
Okay, so this say all the people, the nations, and the language. So they weren't of one language. These were the other ones that Nebuchadnezzar brought in. It's like he brought other ones into captivity. It wasn't just, he wanted them to learn the tongues of the Chaldeans back at the chapter 1 of Daniel, because this is what he operated in. This was from him. Just like we get here and we operate under American language, but we have other nations that are also here too. But it's going to be him enforcing the way he want to operate. But you look at this, a lot of them were hating off Daniel because they go before the king to try to set him up, and they say, look, those Hebrews that you brought in, they're not worshiping the image when the music's played. So, you know, and they're saying this because it's like Daniel has come in and pretty much rose to the top, you know what I'm saying, because of the power of the Most High and because of the favor they had on their life. So they're trying to go before the king to let them know, hey, look, we got some that don't regard. They don't want to bow down to your image, you know what I'm saying? So many words, they're trying to test the king's power. They're saying, look, you got to punish them pretty much. And they're not saying it, but they're kind of letting them know that somebody's being disobedient to the order that he put forth so that they can, get Daniel, in trouble, pretty much. So we look at this here, we see that no matter what goes on, Daniel are still standing strong. They're not trying to bow or do anything different, no matter what the king said or what. They're saying, look, we understand we're in Babylon, but we're still going to stand strong and do what we're supposed to be doing according to our culture and our nation. And so you can bring your culture with you. You don't have to operate, from the standpoint of the way they want you to operate because you're in a foreign land. You don't have, there's no excuse. The Most High is not going to let you use that as an excuse to eat everything that they produce and gave you. You got to look at what is the dietary law, and you got to look deeper into that. And so it's like, you got to realize, okay, I can't just sit here and operate wickedly because I'm overhearing everybody else is doing it. It won't be an excuse. The Most High won't let you do that and say, okay, I'm going to just brush this off. Now you're going to have to answer to that. You're going to be judged based upon the way you carried yourself. So we'll look at 13, verse 13. This is after they went and told on Daniel, Nebuchadnezzar, and I'm going to give them another chance to try to bow down, but they're not bowing down. They're still standing strong.
Right, 13. Then Nebuchadnezzar, in his rage and fury, commanded to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. then they brought these men before the king. Nebuchadnezzar spoke and said unto them, "Is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that do not ye serve my Elohim, no worship the golden image which I have set up? Now, if ye be ready, that at what time you hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye fall down and worship the image which I have made. Well, but if ye worship not, ye shall be cast the same hour to the midst of a burning fiery furnace. And who is that Elohim that shall deliver you out of my hands?" And
so it's like Nebuchadnezzar's mind blowing. He's like, they're not doing what I said do. He said, let's do this again. He said, let's try this again. We're gonna give you another time. Okay, we're gonna let the music play again. I gotta see it. My eyes playing tricks on me. Y'all not about. As it. So it's pretty much what he's doing. Like it already happened, and they've been told on. So when you get back right here again, he said, "Look, I'm gonna do this again, and we're gonna take a second. It's going like, look, take two. Y'all gonna bow or what? Because if you don't bow, I don't know who can save you out of my hand." And so you gotta remember that. Look, you ain't got that by yourself. So obviously he don't know that he's not the one that brought himself into power at this point, but he's finna find out.
16. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we are not careful to answer you in this matter. If it be so, our Elohim, whom we will serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of your hand, O king.
So they let them know no matter what you say, the Most High is still going to deliver us.
But if not, be it known unto you, O king, that we will not serve your Elohim, nor worship the golden image which you have set up.
Okay, and this is what we have to get to. We have to get to a point where no matter what the Most High will is for our life, we stand. Like, this is the thing, like, you know, even if you're slain or you're a martyr for whatever the righteous sake of Yahushua HaMashiach, your thing is to stand, because this is the thing, like Paul said, to be absent from the body is to be present with Yah. So it's like you can't be focused on what's going to happen to you. So if you're serving Yah based upon what happens to you, you're not going to make it. It has to be a decision made that we would say come hell or high water, whatever you want to say, you still gonna keep serving Yah. It doesn't matter what happens. Like, you can't serve Yah based on conditions. Like, you have to serve Yah no matter what. And if you're serving Yah no matter what, it shows that you're not concerned about this present world, but you're concerned about the kingdom that's to come. Because that's the only thing you can control. You can't control whether Yah has grace or mercy upon you. Now, the only thing you can control is that he is Yah and that you are to serve him. So they said, look, it doesn't matter whether he save us or not. We know that he is able. It may have not been the will of Yah, but one thing we do know, we're not going to serve you. That they can control. So you can't let pressure come upon you and cause you to flinch and to turn and to go serving, you know, somebody besides the Most High, or go get caught up into the waves of the world because things have gotten rough. So now you start entertaining things you wouldn't normally entertain. No matter what goes on, you still have to stand. Like, there are certain standards that you should have to certain things you just won't do. Certain places you just won't go. It got to be certain ways that, you know, you have to carry yourself to, you just won't bend no matter what. Like, you can't bend based upon what's going on. Like, you have to say, look, I'm not going to bend, and the Most High is still going to do it. You have to get to a point where you operate in stubborn faith. They're saying, look, whether he saves us or not is not our business. What our business is to serve him and not you. And that's what it is. They drew the line between them and Nebuchadnezzar, and that's when the Most High stepped in. They did not straddle on the fence. They drew the line, and they put their life in the hands of the Most High all the way. They didn't try to look at him. They didn't care how big he was or what was going on. Everybody was doing it. So it didn't matter, because the rest of those people are not trying to serve. These are Nebuchadnezzar's people. They're not trying to serve, you know, the Most High. So why are we looking at people that's not trying to serve the Most High and trying to get advice from them? Worldly counsels and stuff. It's not wrong with somebody that's got to get some information or well, but you can't let them be the end all be all. Like, you can get help. It's okay, you got to get help here and now, but that can't be the standard. You have to have your own standard. And if you need to be helped in certain areas, that's fine, because I understand there are not a lot of counselors that's set up in Yashua, but at the same time, we shouldn't allow the counsel of the world to dictate how we live our life. And so, yeah, that's it.
Then was Nebuchadnezzar full of fury, and the form of his visage was changed against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Therefore he spoke and commanded that they should heat the furnace 7 times more than it was wont to be heated.
All right, you stop right there. Let's go to 22 right quick. We got a few more to go in there yet. So they heated it 7 times hotter. We'll go to 23, to the point where it slew the men that were actually taking them to the fire furnace. So let's go to 23.
23. And these 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down bound into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king was astonished and rose up in haste and spoke and said unto his counselors, did not we cast 3 men bound into the midst of the fire? They answered and said unto the king, true, O king. And he answered and said, lo, I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they have no hurt, and the form of the 4th is like the son of Elohim.
Oh man, so he had to take a double take. He was like, man, this showed me. Like say, at this point, he has to be convinced. Like, there's nothing that can stop him from being convinced. He lit it 7 times hotter, and he has lost his men. He lost not just his men, but some of the most powerful men he had to go take them to make sure they was going to make it to the fire. Look, I need you to enforce. It's like you being in maximum security, and the guards that take you are very skilled. It's like you have the Navy, and then you have a Navy SEAL. Like, it's a total different ball game. Navy SEAL get dropped off into the water, bound, and they have to swim like a fish. It's just a little exercise they do. The Navy, you just there. You kind of, doing your basic duty and everything, but it's beyond basic training when you're a Navy SEAL. So these guys here were actually skilled. These were skilled guys. They say, look, They didn't kill my men on the way taking them, and they're down there and they're not even hurt, and it's somebody else with them. Man, this is crazy. I gotta see this. So it's like the king's mind is blown at this point, and his mind is blown because they drew the line. He remembered that too. They told him, we're not serving you. This is why they wound up getting us. So at this point, he has to be convinced when you stand and people see you standing and the Most High help you in the midst of you standing, they feel like you should have been done something that you don't supposed to do to get where you need to go or to save yourself, and they see you don't do it. Well, at that point, they're like, well, man, I got to believe now. You win them over. You win them over by having a standard. This is how you win people over, by having a standard, aware about yourself. There's certain things you just don't do. You have to have certain ways about yourself that it doesn't matter what the Most High told people that was okay and all that stuff. Certain times he take you to a higher level. And to much is given, much is required. So when he began to take you to a higher level, it's not that you're operating in a sin or anything, it's that you just don't carry yourself the way certain people carry themselves because you're set apart. And that's from the set apart. So you're not just doing the basic bare minimum, you're doing more. Like, so we have to look at this here and say, okay, the king at this point knows that it's another power with them because he's already seen what happened in the physical. So let's go to 26. Did you read 26? Mm-hmm.
Then Nebuchadnezzar came near to the mouth of the burning fiery furnace and spoke and said, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, ye servants of the Most High Elohim, come forth and come hither.
Now you see what he called them? He said, ye servants of the Most High. You ain't my servants no more. If this can happen, you got to serve him. Like, this is what happens. Like, he set a table before them in the presence of their enemies. Like, Nebuchadnezzar, even though he was used as a servant of the Most High, what turns him an enemy unto them is when they bend. But if they don't bend, then they're okay. It's like, you can stay here and you can be under my rule and still serve who you want to serve. Like, because at this point, you're going to make the choice. Because anybody that can stop you from being burnt up, I don't want no part of that. Like, he knows he has to stand back at this point. He cannot resist the power of Yah. This shows that once you stand, the power of Yah will be expressed. But if you're not standing, he has no reason. Like, if you bend, you're going to get caught up into everything else that you shouldn't be caught up into. You say, okay, why did this happen? Why I got sick? Or why did this happen to me? It's because you've been. But if you stand, then the Most High steps in because you can't control it. If you're still able to control it, then why do he need to step in? At this point, they're not trying to do half of it. They're going to do it all. They say, look, we're not going to serve you at all. We're not going to bow. We don't want your food. They never been. It's like the bent. The whole while they were like, look, we don't want your food. They pretty much don't want nothing to happen that the king is saying, but they got to do some of it because they're there. Like, Daniel's not hearing any of this stuff.
Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came forth of the midst of the fire. And the princes, governors, captains, and the king's counselors being gathered together saw these men, upon whose bodies the fire had no power, nor was a hair of their heads singed, neither were their coats changed, nor the smell of fire had passed on them.
See, it's like the Most High didn't let it contaminate them at all, not even a scent, like nothing, no color, discoloration, nothing has happened. It's like the Most High stopped time. It's like they felt probably better, but prior to them even getting close to the heat, whatever way you was feeling out here is how they felt when they were in the fire. It's like it had nothing. And it's the same thing. We don't read this today, but it's the same thing with Daniel in the lion's den. It's like he shut the lion's mouth. Daniel's probably lying there playing with him like a puppy, because this is what goes on when you stand and don't bend. The Most High steps in. It's like he's not gonna not step in because you didn't want to bow down to a false Elohim. Think about it. He said there should be no other Elohim before me. He said that's the commandment. So if you're following the commandment, why is he going to let you be punished at that point if you're standing and if you're operating in righteousness? Now, if you're still already crooked and then you're trying to do that, that's different. But if you're standing up right before the Most High and doing to the best of your abilities, he's not going to allow you to be taken out because you didn't want to bow to a false Elohim. And this is the same thing happened here. So they didn't even have the smell of fire or anything. So we look forth, we see that the decree went forth by the king and let them know that they didn't have to serve nobody else but the Most High. Like, they didn't have to bend or nothing. Like, only thing they had to do was serve the Most High. The king put a decree forth. Like, nobody don't mess with them no more. Don't disturb them or anything. They are the servants of the Most High. He was convinced and he was a believer at this particular point in time. Now, this shows you how far you can be carried away into Babylon. Daniel and them came to it in the beginning where if you read translation, it said they were young men. They were children when they came in. By the time Daniel gets to King Darius, he's probably an older man at this point. By the time Daniel gets to the point where he's fasting for 21 days, when the prince of Persia and Michael the angel is begin to battle to get the prayer back and the answer back to Daniel. At this point, Daniel's probably an older man at this point. So Daniel lived through probably 4 of these kings. This just showing you we've been here. How many presidents have we lived through since we've been here and our ancestors lived through? It doesn't change who we are because we see them changing. He's still standing. He's still standing. He didn't bend. King Darius is not King Nebuchadnezzar. King Darius should be the king as we get to the lion's den. This is a whole different king, and Daniel is still the same. He's not changing. And so it shows that all this happened because of disobedience. Disobedience, it started with us fighting against one another. That's where this started. It started with us. The same thing happens now. It's like we can't get along because everybody wants to be in charge and they want to take advantage of the people. But when you start to operate in unity and start operating in love and show people that, look, this is the way the Most High wants us to do. This is the way he wants us to act. If you don't act that way, then there's nothing that can save you from out of it. So, you got anything? We're going to close this out with prayer. For y'all, thank you right now for the word that went forth. I thank you for y'all that we will not bow. We will not bow to anything that's not like you, anything that's tries to cause us to compromise our walk for y'all. We won't bow to it for y'all. We think that we'll cast down any idea, any imagination that comes to exalt itself against the knowledge of you, and that idea will be brought under the obedience of Yahushua Mashiach. For y'all, we thank you right now for being with us throughout the rest of this day. For y'all, we thank you right now that even more that you increase us with knowledge, wisdom, understanding how to walk in righteousness for y'all, how to be set apart, Kodesh for y'all, how to be a people for y'all that aim to serve you and aim to do the will of you for y'all, not what we want to do for y'all. We thank you right now for y'all for being with us for y'all and allowing us to operate as servants of you for y'all. We come against that ruach of pride, which starts everything for y'all. Pride is what causes everyone to fall. Pride causes a lot of division for y'all. We think right now that we don't operate in division, but we operate in unity for y'all. We operate in the ruach of excellence for y'all and the things of you. For y'all, in the name of Saint Yahushua Mashiach, we pray. So be it.